like to call the meeting to order. Can I get a roll call, please?
Mrs. Craig.
Here.
Mrs. Fields.
Here.
Mr. Hyden. Mr. Nuss.
Here.
Ms. Van Zandt.
Here.
Mrs. Steele. Here. Mrs. Stoll.
Here.
Mrs. Whitty. Here. Mr. D'Agostino.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Will you please join me in the flags? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of the Act, the Sussex-Wantage Regional School District Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted in the school building, and notice of said meeting sent to the New Jersey Herald and the Star Ledger.
The Sussex-Wantage Regional School District is a responsive, caring, child-centered community. Our mission is to educate each individual to become a confident, lifelong learner and productive, responsible citizen by providing challenging opportunities to a safe environment through a partnership of families, schools, and communities.
All right, at this time, we will move on to the report of the superintendent of schools.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to invite our middle school principal, Mr. Schwartz, up to present the Student of the Month for Sussex Middle School, and Mr. D'Agostino.
Good evening, Mr. Gall, Mr. D'Agostino, members of our Board of Education, and of our audience tonight. It is with great pride that I stand before you this evening to present our Students of the Month. Every month I have the pleasure of meeting each of these individuals, and during these meetings I am able to gain insight into their hobbies, favorite subjects, and extracurricular activities. Each of the students tonight have been highly recommended by their teachers. And as I introduce you to each student tonight, I will provide a brief snapshot of the wonderful accolades that have helped them earn the Student of the Month. In 6th grade this month, the recipient is Grace Thomas. When I sat with Grace, she told me that her favorite class was mathematics. This is a subject area that she has always enjoyed, and she looks to continue to pursue her joy for mathematics as she works her way through 6th grade advanced section this year. When Grace gets older, she would like to pursue a career as a veterinarian. This field has always interested her. She has a love for animals and currently cares for her horse and 2 dogs. Outside of SMS, Grace enjoys being very active. She has a passion for both drawing and gymnastics. While drawing has been a hobby that Grace has always excelled in and loved, gymnastics is more of a recent adventure for her. Grace is also involved in her church community, where she is looking forward to future activities and volunteer experiences they may offer. At SMS, Grace is looking forward to chorus this year and continuing to take advantage of all the freedoms she has at SMS. Grace's teacher stated the following: Grace has already demonstrated that she is an exceptional student. She is kind and warm to those around her and is constantly eager to learn more. We are expecting great things from Grace as she progresses throughout the year. It is with great pride that I introduce Grace as the 6th grade student of the month. In 7th grade this month, the recipient is Austin Mitchell. When I sat with Austin, he told me that his favorite class was mathematics. Austin stated that over the years, he has built up confidence in the subject area and is looking forward to learning more this year. When speaking with him about a potential career path, Austin indicated that he would like to be a professional baseball player. If this does not work out, he will likely pursue a career as a veterinarian. Like Grace, Austin has always been interested in caring for animals and finds the field to be very interesting. Austin is quite active in athletics, participating in baseball, basketball, football, track, and cross country. He also enjoys participating in chorus here at SMS. Austin's teacher stated the following: Austin is a very hard worker and a really kind person. He made the move to advanced math this year and is proving he deserved the opportunity. Austin is a conscientious boy who strives to be honest, kind, and does his best. In addition, Austin is respectful to his teachers and his peers and regularly completes his homework. It is with great pride that I introduce Austin as 7th grade student of the month. In 8th grade this month, the recipient is Maddie Kappenmeyer. When I sat with Maddie, she told me that her favorite class was mathematics. Maddie stated that this subject area has always come easy to her. In particular, she enjoys all of the problem-solving aspects that come with the content area. Maddie indicated that she would like to be a lawyer someday. She takes pride in her ability to argue a point, defend a friend, and/or problem solve for the benefit of herself or others. In knowing how hard Maddie works, I am confident that she will be successful in any career that she chooses in the future. Maddie is also an avid swimmer. She participates on the YMCA swim team throughout the winter and on the Newton swim team during the summer months. She's looking to pursue this sport at High Point, where I know that she will find great success. Here at SMS, Maddie is part of our cheerleading squad, where she continues to support our basketball team with the rest of her sports. Maddie stated that the best aspect of school was being able to have the opportunity to learn while being with friends. Her teacher stated the following: Maddie is a wonderful young lady who works hard at the highest academic levels and is also involved in several after-school activities. We look forward to working with her for the entirety of the year. As we say goodbye to Maddie at the end of the year, I can say that she has had a tremendous impact on her teachers and peers along the way, and she will shortly be missed. It is with great pride that I introduce Maddie as the 8th grade student.
Well, we always encourage the folks to stick around for our board meeting. If you didn't want to, you're more than welcome to leave. This would be the opportune time.
Bye.
You just got here late.
Congratulations, Matt.
Thank you, see Austin for his award.
We're in the wrong building. Congratulations.
You're so tall. They're all in the building, baby. Well, I went to the right building, but I was like, there's 3 places. I don't even know.
Thank you. Good night. Have a wonderful night.
So I'm just going to report out on some items that I reported out at the work session committee of the whole last week, just because some folks weren't here, and I see you in attendance tonight. So we talked about some district goals, maintaining our multi-year goal to enhance student learning outcomes in math, particularly at Sussex Middle School. That's something we continue to work toward. Enhancing safety and security, that's something else we continue to consistently work towards. Big event that Mr. Terwilliger and the Wantage School, Mr. Gregory in the back there, are working to coordinate with Nielsen Auto Group is something called the Drive One for Your School event. You know, I had the honor of participating in that a couple of years ago at Wantage School. We did it twice. Basically, it was Madrino at the time, but Nielsen will bring out, probably a dozen vehicles in front of Wantage School, and everybody has the opportunity to come, licensed driver, drive one, take one for a test drive, go up to the township hall, come back, no commitment to buy, really, in my experience, no pressure to buy a car or a sales pitch, but every drive generates $20 for the school, and the past 2 times we did it, you're looking at about $5,000 in each Drive One event. So that's an exciting thing. I know they're talking about trying to expand on that event to draw out even more people with things like trying to coordinate a child safety seat check, having the Sheriff's Department or the New Jersey State Police out, possibly a food truck, maybe having Schoolcraft, our company who does school pictures, do family photos, pumpkin painting, those kinds of things. So it always promises to be a great event that they're working towards, and that is anticipated to be October 26th from 9 to 2. Back to school nights, we had all the back to school nights at the various schools, and they were very well attended. It's always, you almost want to build like a parking garage for folks because you can't find parking at any of the schools. Little update about the Lawrence School. We had the well go down for about 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes today. We were able to get it back up and running. appears to be some kind of software issue. Didn't run out of water or anything like that, but we did went on a drinking protocol. And Mr. Petrowski is reaching out to the state to discuss various protocols and how we might, if we were able to get flexibility in that, because we have a chlorination system, so my understanding is the water is always chlorinated in the pipes, and so maybe they can exercise some discretion with us. Another item I want to report out on is we received an inquiry from a Mr. Toth in the community. My understanding on his background is he had some degree of involvement. If you've ever been to High Plains Auditorium, there's a mural that I think Art Frisbee painted, but Mr. Toth had some degree of involvement in getting recognition plaques and something to do with that mural. So what he's petitioned us about or given us information about is he'd like to do something similar for our school district, where he'd present each school with a plaque. He would do all the research, apparently recognizing former, current staff members who may be veterans. So it seemed like an interesting idea. Just wanted to, I think we put it in a rundown prior for the board. And that's all I have at this time.
All right. At this time, we'll move on to audience remarks. Members of the audience are invited to make brief comments about items on this agenda and matters of interest to the district.
Sussex-Wantage. I just want to start out by saying, listen, I'm sorry that the district has had to deal with all the drama that has been caused by almost any shadow of a doubt by one of the board members sitting up there as I speak. This has dragged on for 4 years now, but when you try to destroy my family, you've crossed the line. It is in the best interest of the board and the community to be aware of what this party has obviously had a hand in. 4 years ago, when I ran in this very Board of Ed election, this party stole pictures of my husband's 40th birthday party, redneck theme, and plastered them all over their Facebook page and attempted to paint me in a bad light, but failed because I won the election. And apparently to this person's discord, because then I was accused of false, horrible accusations of being a racist, bigot, LGBTQ hater, which is the furthest thing from the truth. This went on for 2 years as I sat on this board. When my term was up, the tables were turned, and it was my turn to speak. And I spoke my mind, about what I thought was wrong about the things that were said. And apparently, no one is allowed to have a different opinion than this party, because this party then took the same pictures taken at that party almost 7 years ago, sent these pictures into my employer, okay? By the way, these pictures are still on my page because there's absolutely nothing wrong with the pictures. It was a costume party for a 40th birthday party. They sent them to my employer, the state of New Jersey, where I have worked for 2 decades. I have an impeccable work performance throughout all of my years, yet I come to find out, in the middle of my mother suffering through stage 4 cancer, that they received a slew of false accusations surrounding the exact same accusations that were made against me on their Facebook page and at this meeting throughout the last 2 years. The amount of complete garbage submitted to my employer was unreal, and my employer was able to see exactly what this was. I have a letter from my employer, and I will be pursuing it further. However, was able to see right through what all this was, a personal vendetta, all because I spoke my mind at board meetings. So now the public, the employees of the district, and other board members better tread lightly, and they better curb what they have to say, because there might be retaliation. Filing false accusations like this is a form of harassment and should be seriously examined by this board, because what happened to me could happen to anyone else in this room. And it should be considered by the board. Because now you're not allowed to speak in public without somebody trying to make you lose your job. I didn't lose my job, I got a promotion. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Are there any other comments?
Hi, Sharon, Wantage. I'm sure everyone in the room knows who I am. Parents often come and have questions and they want to take action. And I encourage them to come to board meetings. I encourage them to run for the board. When things like this go on, and that's my number one answer I get most of the time when I talk to folks in our community, oh no, Sharon, I can't go and do that. There will be some sort of retaliation. And we've seen the retaliation now. It's in black and white. So I hope the members of this board takes what has happened very seriously, because we won't have a board if this continues. This is a place for people to come and speak their minds. These are their children and how they want them educated, and the taxpayers have the right to stand up and speak their minds. You can't even get anyone to run for the board anymore. Why? So I hope that when this board goes to executive session, you all sit down, you all discuss this, and take this very seriously. For without this board, we will not have schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments?
Hello, Lisa Van Orden, SWEA president. First, I'd just like to say, the turnout we had for the Woodbourne 5K, just like to thank the administrators that all came, especially Mr. Schwartz, who no one can seem to beat, but maybe someday. Our Pride Committee, involving Kim Walsh and Carol Speck, spent their summer writing grants for the upcoming school year for programs for the school district, and they were awarded through NJEA $12,500 to utilize for the school district this year. So our first $200 went to sponsor the Woodbourne 5K, which we just had. And coming up, we have $100 we're donating for refreshments for the Fun Fit Fair that's coming up at the Wantage School. And then the programs throughout the year as well, and I'll let you know about them when they come up. So just wanted to say that. And, oh yeah, so there's just a couple of things I wanted to ask questions about on the agenda, just for clarification. Just on personnel, number 7, Gina's position going from .3 Vanny to .5 special ed TA. Just not exactly sure what that is, .3 to .5. She's going off the van to be a special ed TA. Page 2, number 7 under personnel.
Yeah, I have to double check with Mrs. Wilson.
Oh, okay, just one clarification on that. And then also, item 12 on page 4, I see that summer school is approved for July 6th through the 30th for this coming school year. I noticed the times you have is 8:30 to 12. It's usually 8:30 to 12:30. I'm not sure, is that a typo or is that reduced by a half hour?
I believe it's reduced. But
Is it reduced?
Yeah,
Does that mean that then the salaries will be reduced for summer school as well?
it's possible, but we'll review it with Mr. Linsky, our curriculum director.
Okay, and then if I could just make a suggestion, this past summer, I teach summer school every single year, and this past summer, we were made to wait until the program was entirely over to get our very first paycheck, which is very difficult for a lot of us, especially single moms, so I was wondering if there's any way we could at least get a check the 15th of July, and then again the 30th, since it ends on the 30th, and not have to wait until August 15th, when the program's already done for like over 2 weeks. If there's any way, if I could say that now, so maybe we could budget for that for the summer, if that's a possibility. Because this past summer school, we didn't get paid until after 4 weeks of summer school was over. And that was kind of a long stretch. So
We'll discuss
just
it with
wanted to make a
business officer.
suggestion. Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any other public comments?
Hi, I'm Emily Olmer. This is my very first board meeting I've ever attended, so I love it. I just wanted to read a thank you note that we wrote on behalf of the Washington DC or 8th grade trip committee. We recently just started, we just had a fundraiser, it was a car wash, and we were very appreciative of the turnout, so here goes. Dear board members, on behalf of the Washington DC committee, we would like to sincerely thank you for our support at our first fundraiser event of the school year. On Saturday, September 12, 2019, we had a car wash at the Sussex-Wantage. Numerous board members showed up donating time and money and left with a semi-clean car and a smile. The final $30 is donated by Board President Mr. Nicholas D'Agostino and Board Vice President Ms. Colleen Ramsden, bringing our grand total to $1,000 exactly. We are very grateful to our volunteers. They consisted of Clifton Lawrence School, Sussex Middle School, and High Point students. We are excited about the future fundraising ideas and look forward to sharing them with you. Please know that your support and participation are greatly appreciated by this committee and most importantly, the 8th grade students and their families. Sincerely, the Washington DC /8th grade
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for being there.
All right, are there any other public comments? Seeing none, we will move on to the board secretary certification.
Pursuant to NJAC 6A23A -16.10C3, I certify that as of August 31st, 2019, no line item account has encumbrances and expenditures which in total exceed the line item appropriation in violation of NJAC 6A23A-16.10A.
All right, we'll move on to the approval of board minutes for July 31st, 2019, regular and executive session, and August 28th, 2019, regular and executive session. Looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Nuss?
Yes.
Ms. Raisin?
Yes.
Ms. Craig?
Yes, July 31st, and I abstained on the 28th for absence.
Mrs. Fields?
Yes.
Mr. Hyden?
Yes, on July 31st, and I'll stay on the 28th of August.
Mrs. Fields?
Yes.
Mrs. Fall?
Yes, July 31st, full, and abstain August 28th, full, through absence.
Mrs. Liddy?
Yes.
Mr. D'Agostino?
Yes.
Minutes are approved.
All right, we'll move on to the presentation of agenda items.
For personnel, I'd like to move items number 1 through 21. I'm going to pull item number 7. I think I know the answer, but I want to get further clarification. And amending item number 14, substitute custodian, from $14 per hour should be $11 per hour.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Thank you. Discussion? All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Nuss?
Yes.
Mrs. Craig?
Yes.
Mrs. Fields?
Yes.
Mr. Hyden?
Yes.
Ms. Raisin?
Yes.
Mrs. Steele?
Yes.
Mrs. Fall?
Yes.
Mrs. Liddy?
Yes.
Mr. D'Agostino?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Under policy, I'd like to move item 22.
I'll
Well-
motion.
Thank you. Looking for a second. Thank you. Discussion? All right, roll call, please.
Ms. Raisin?
Yes.
Mrs. Fall?
Yes.
Mrs. Craig? Yep. Mrs. Fields?
Yes.
Mr. Hyden?
Yes.
Mr. Nuss?
Yes.
Mrs. Steele? Yes. Mrs. Liddy?
Yes.
Mr. D'Agostino?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Under finance, I'd like to move items 1 through 19.
Looking for a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Looking for a second? Thank you. Discussion?
Are you raising your hand?
I
Or am I gonna ask a
Are you?
question? Well, you know, and I ask this at every board meeting, but I
We were
know
talk-
there.
We said this question was going to come up, so we
On any of the approval of.
We knew it.
I'll just,
You guys know me too well. But the reason why I'm asking is there's probably board members here and people in the audience that don't realize what is happening with,
Yes, the district is granted various different allocations, either through the ESEA grants or just straight non-public funding for non-publics. The only non-public in our district is Sussex Christian. We can't dispute the amount, we get the amount, we have to expend it on their behalf, but the purchases have to come through us. And we are audited as to the validity of the expenditures and that they're doing things in accordance with the particular grant or fund that it's coming from. So periodically throughout the year, there will be, because there are many more allocations than what they've already spent.
For these items?
Did they ask me for these items?
Yeah.
Yes,
They-
they submit what they want,
specific.
they submit what they want to do, yes. And I have to get it approved by the board before they're allowed to do it, because then we issue the purchase orders on behalf of the district.
because then last year they purchased a door or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what came up.
That's
Yes.
what.
Yes, they actually have some very large allocations for security and technology
Well,
that
that was
they.
the other thing that came up was the security, because that was a big one.
Yeah, it's like a $12,000 allocation this year. So, yes, so there will be more, you can continue to, I wish that, you know, it is a lot of work on the district's behalf, so I understand.
It is, but I know, I understand it, and as I go along, but I know there's board members and even people in the audience that do not understand. Like, if I was not a board member, I wouldn't even know this even now.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Craig?
Yes.
Mrs. Whitty?
Yes.
Mrs. Fields?
Yes.
Mr. Hyden?
Yes.
Mr. Nuss?
Yes.
Ms. Van Zandt?
Yes.
Mrs. Steele? Mrs. Stoll?
Yes.
Mr. D'Agostino?
Yes.
Motion carries.
For special services, I'd like to move items 1 through 6.
All right, looking for a motion? Thank you. Looking for a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Discussion?
On the phosphorus?
Special services.
Pay attention.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Stoll?
Yes.
Mrs. Craig?
Yes.
Mrs. Fields?
Yes.
Mr. Hyden?
Yes.
Mr. Nuss?
Yes.
Ms. Van Zandt?
Yes.
Mrs. Steele? Ms. Whitty?
Yes.
Mr. D'Agostino?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Under curriculum, item number 1.
Looking for a motion?
All motion.
Oh, and then done assistant
I
secretary.
was going to do this separately. And referring to the addendum curriculum, item number 1.
Oh, we're gonna do that one.
Can we get a second? Mr.
I'll
Nuss?
second.
Thank you.
Wait, first.
Me.
Okay, thank you, sorry.
No, you're fine.
And discussion?
I have.
Clarification, we're doing the entire
Curriculum and
curriculum
addendum.
and the addendum together, okay, thank you.
Can I ask my question? For the 10-16 trip for the agriculture Sussex County Fairgrounds, that $3 plus the bus, is that per student that the board paid, right?
It's $3 per student plus the bus.
Okay. And
Just
then,
so-
okay,
No, no,
we done?
I had the same question.
Oh. And then on the 10-25, Mrs. Citro, for the Sparta High School, how many students are attending, and how come that cost is so high?
Is that per student too?
Is that?
Is that per student too or no?
There's no cost to students. I'm betting that's
I'm-
not.
No, it says cost to board is $77.45.
Is that for
So,
each student or?
I'm
overall
assuming
cost?
it is.
So that's per student?
I don't think there's any charge per student.
No, the
But
board-
no,
the
no,
board
there's
pays
no
them
cost to the
instead.
student, but the board is paying for that cost. So I just wanna
Yeah.
know, one, how many students are going,
Why it's so
They know.
much.
and how come it costs so much, I mean, if they have to register for it, because they're bringing in speakers or whomever.
Well, they get a lunch
That's
that
fine.
day, like typically, because my 2 girls are gone, and typically we have a lot of kids there.
Yeah.
And then we have the bus that goes, they get a lunch supplied to them, and they have some of the best speakers you've ever seen there.
So it's
That's
not
weird,
$77.45.
No, that's not the way I understand it.
Can I ask a question?
It was for like the whole bus today.
Yes, go ahead.
I think that the confusion is that some folks believe that that's 77.45, because most of the trips are broken down per student. They want to have a clarification with regards to if it's 77.45 for the entire trip as opposed to
I
the
believe it
POE,
is for the entire
or is
trip.
it 77.45?
I believe it's the entire trip. I'm looking at the application form and it's
I
0.
don't believe there is a charge for children, for
I
the
think
kids to go.
Yeah, I think it's because the buses, we need a bus to leave slightly earlier because kids were late in the past getting to the function.
Thank you.
So that might be actually a contracted bus cost, because our buses can't do the, get them there
Yeah.
because they're doing.
They need to leave at 8 a.m.
So I think that that's probably what we're being charged.
I think that was a change, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was a change on last year's agenda because of that issue, because we used to drive our kids to that. And then, like you said, the kids were getting there late, so there was always a bus home. But then we got a bus there in the morning because there was issues with kids actually getting to the event. But then they're supplied a lunch. I mean, they're there for like 6 hours. It's a phenomenal event. If anybody ever has a chance to go, it's phenomenal.
Yeah, I never had the privilege of attending it.
You should really sit in
Typically,
on it.
Mr.
It is something that moves those kids like you've never seen. It is something that is No, the kids have never paid, but like I said, there was an issue, because like, we had to drive our kids, so I drove Ash, and then with Mandy, there was an issue with actually no, it was Skylar, there was an issue with the busing. So if the kids, exactly what you just said, the kids were getting there late. So my guess would be that that's where that would come in. But it's phenomenal, they get lunch, they get shirts, it's a phenomenal event, phenomenal.
We definitely need to hire a bus to leave 8 AM.
Yeah,
So it's like the whole day, 8 to 3?
yeah, they get back by like 2:30 so they can get on their buses to go home.
So then can you just, how many students are going? Can you find that out? Just
32.
32? And then you'll clarify that the cost is the entire trip, correct?
That's my understanding.
Okay.
Is it an organization that the kids belong to that they get credit?
They get it by a teacher, like it's like a nomination by a teacher, yeah.
It's not like it's only-
All right, is there any other discussion on curriculum or the addendum? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Renzini?
Yes.
Mrs. Fields?
Yes.
Mrs. Craig?
Yes.
Mr. Hyden?
Yes.
Mr. Nuss?
Yes.
Mrs. Steele? Yes. Mrs. Stahl?
Yes.
Mrs. Whitty?
Yes.
Mr. D'Agostino?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, we'll move on to unfinished business. Does anyone on the board have unfinished business that they'd like to discuss? Yeah,
At the meeting we had the other night, last week, we discussed, due to the fact that we're expending district resources, i.e. attorney's fees, video people, that we were gonna go back to what we were doing, where we have one meeting a month that was open to the public, and go back to the committee meetings. I was wondering if that should be voted on this evening.
Is that a vote we would do now, or does that be a calendar vote? Francis? Would that have to be like a schedule, make an addendum to a schedule?
You can have a vote now, if that's something the board wants to do, but you could also take that action at any time. So if that requires further consideration and vote by the board, you don't really have to act now.
Right. Would anyone like to, I know there were a few board members that were not present.
I'll make a motion
as far
to
as-
eliminate those 4 meetings right now.
So a motion to amend the meeting
Schedule.
schedule
And eliminate the committee of the whole meetings.
and remove the work session.
Well, I'm not sure how to do this, so I can learn, but.
Somebody would second the motion, we take a vote.
No, actually, I'm questioning whether we just have work sessions as opposed to committee meetings, because they were never supposed to be both. I mean, the work sessions were supposed to be in place of. So I'm not sure exactly how it happened, so I think it would have to be one or the other. Not necessarily committee meetings, but possibly 12 work sessions.
Yeah, there were not supposed to be both small committees and committee as a whole.
But that's
this
what
month.
we're doing.
That's what happened this month, but that's.
That's what happened
And it
the last
happened
meeting
last-
also.
You're right, you're absolutely right, and it was not supposed to be like that, it's supposed to be in place of.
If that's the consensus of the board, and again, this is something that the board can decide, right? You can still discuss how the formatting is gonna work. So if you wanna replace committees with the committee of a whole, you can certainly do that. If you wanna overlap work sessions with your regular sessions, meaning the work session precedes the regular, that's something you can do as well. So you have that flexibility, and you don't have to decide this now. You can continue to talk amongst each other, have discussions and open, I mean,
I'd
really
like to
think
know
about it.
where everyone stands. I think we should at least let everyone equally know. For me, I think we have to do one or the other. It has to either be just my opinion, that we were doing it with the committees and one meeting a month, or the way we used to do it, the work session and the regular monthly meeting. I don't think we should have any meetings before a scheduled meeting. And I think while it was a good idea and the intentions were good, it was just too confusing. I think for the public, it makes it, I mean, people didn't even know we had a meeting. And to have it every 4 months,
Yeah.
every 3 months. I mean, our schedules are crazy enough. I think we have to be consistent with what we decide to do, and for me, I can go either way. I'm fine with the way we're doing it.
Well, I wasn't here last week, but I watched the video. And with that said, I really agree with what you said, like the hybrid seemed to bring up confusion. But I don't understand what the issue would be with doing the work sessions. We had done those for years. The videographer is here anyway because we do student of the month, we do presentations, so he is here anyway. It's not a waste of taxpayer dollars by any means because he's here anyway for when we do all the presentations. So what would be wrong? Does that not utter like extreme transparency? So, and like I said, I agree with you, like the hybrid to me is confusing to the public. I think that was very confusing because we had both, and I even questioned it because I couldn't be there. I even questioned like, why did we do both? Because we weren't supposed to.
Well, one of the reasons for me, I can commit to 1 meeting a month with my work schedule. And we have flexibility when we have committees. So, you know, if you guys are fine with me not being able to commit potentially to 2 meetings a month, I'm fine with it. It's just my schedule, you know, I'm a volunteer. If someone wants to run and take one position, that's fine. But I can go with either.
Well, if we go the other way, it absolutely is more costly. We have to have the attorney here and that person 24 times a year instead of 12 times a year. It's way more expensive. The other piece of it is, when we did have those committee of the whole meetings, we spent at most 20 minutes discussing pertinent issues that involve curriculum, involve staff, and I can show you the numbers, and you can look at those videotapes and see how much time we spent discussing those really important issues. And when we meet in committees, and I've done both, over the years, and I know Mrs. Craig has also, and I know Mr. Nuss has also, we as a board receive way much more information about all of these really important issues that affect the students, the staff, and the taxpayers of our community. And to go back to a committee of the whole meeting where we got into trouble several times by voting during committee of the whole meetings and using them as business meetings, it's a very dangerous path to go down as a board. And the board is much less well informed about all of those important issues. We get now it's wonderful. The Friday before our regular meeting, we have all the information we need to contact whatever administrator through the superintendent to get clarification. I, for one, feel that as a board, we're much better able to understand the finances, the curriculum, and the direction of the district. And also, like the last 2 times we had that meeting, our administrators, the last time, were here, after they were here, day in and day out for weeks before school opening, and then for 2 weeks they were at back to school nights, and then they were required to be here again. And not one public member showed up for that meeting. So it's not about transparency. And if you look at the counter on who looks at the meetings on the video, people are just not watching that. I think the board was working pretty well. I'm proud to have worked with this board and the previous boards over the years. And I think it's better for us to see what's going on in the future, to have people like Mrs. Ranzan sit on the committee for curriculum, because she knows the right questions. To have Mr. Nuss on buildings and grounds. I just think that it works a lot better, and it did muddy the waters by having these extra meetings, and it really taxed our administrators with an extra task when they were very busy. And I know that the next scheduled meeting, the last one was September, is December, and everybody's going to be busy with their families for the holidays. And I don't want to, like overshadow, that these staff members were overtaxed, but these board members don't need an extra night in December. I'm sorry.
And I really would like to reiterate again that also when this was brought up, they were not supposed to be double meetings. They were supposed to be in place of. I had said that from the beginning, and I had said it after we had the first meeting, and it ended up being that way. For whatever reason, it did not get changed. So that was a misunderstanding from the beginning that I'm not in control of.
If we continue with the committees though, I really feel there has to be some sort of report out. I still don't think that that's clear and transparent. I still don't think that we are reporting out in buildings and grounds and on the committee curriculum and special ed. I think that has to be clear if we're gonna stick with those.
Do you feel, just a question that I've seen other board structures, do you feel like the board member chair could report out from the committee?
Yes.
Well, Mr. Hyden just said that we got, when we talk about finances, I haven't heard one report from the finance committee. Not one time in any of the times that I've sat here have I heard that. And I know for a fact at one point you had said that you didn't feel it was fair to the administrators to do committees because they weren't being utilized properly. I have it right here, that you actually said that committees were not the way to go because they were underattended, and it's quoted right here, underattended, and that it wasn't fair to the administration because they weren't being kept in the loop. So I really wonder which way is it then?
I think it depends
Because you
on the
said it
board.
both ways
Can I
now.
answer? That was back in, probably about 12 years ago that you talked about.
We're talking because we've
When-
done both ways,
When
because I've been there
when
as well,
those board
with
meetings,
you.
when those committee meetings were not attended by even one or two board members, that has not been the case with this board for the last several years.
You have to look at,
But
The
that's
committee
not
of the
what
whole,
I've been told,
the
that there's
committee of
been
the whole
people
will
missing.
cost us, attorney-wise, double for their attendance per year. It'll tax the folks that are required with providing the entire board with a very short presentation, which in the last, if you look at the last 2 months, last month, you weren't here, but it was 20 minutes that we had been spoken to. I don't know, folks here spend hours at committee meetings. Is that
At least an hour.
factual?
At least an hour.
A 20-minute presentation by the entire, to run the entire district is not enough. And I really think that the committees, back then was a different group of people. I have confidence that this group of people are committed and are attending these committee meetings. Yes, I did say something 12 years ago, and I've continued to be here as much as I can with my family situation as it is. This past year I've missed a couple meetings, but I think if you look back over the bulk of my career on this board, my attendance rate is probably about 95%. And I'm committed with doing the right things for this board and this community, no matter where the leadership is, no matter what the way this board is set up. I'm just giving you my opinion as somebody who's been here and done it both ways, probably more than most of the people in Sussex County on any board. And I've attended trainings, I've done a lot, sacrificed a lot, and I don't want a pat on the back. I just want this board to move forward and do what's right for the community, the students, the taxpayers, and the staff. And I don't think that having a committee of the whole does any of that.
and I truly think that you can switch the way the meetings are run every year or every 2 years, depending on the makeup of the board. Because there's no way we could have done, when I think back to some of the other boards, this structure. So I think you have to have a mindset that if something is not working or is working, that you can switch,
I do agree with Mrs. Ranzan that, and we've been trying to work on that for a long, since Mr. Mooney was here, on committee chairs reporting out at every regular meeting. Like, before the agenda items are presented, you have a report of each committee chair, and then we vote on on what's on the agenda.
But doesn't
Mike's been doing the report out, like,
I was gonna say
they've been
that, he's
accurate.
been doing it
For us.
for us.
Correct.
But it needs to be a piece of the meeting where each committee chair comes out, and they could also entertain questions where applicable and where appropriate, from other board members on, oh, I didn't know that, can you explain? That's all, just a little bit more of that.
How long were the work sessions when you guys used to do them? Were they 20
Well, they would
minutes? or-
vary. I remember one work session.
Work
we did-
sessions
same as
or
the
committee of the whole?
The committee as a whole, the work.
They would last for hours because it got muddied and we ended up having
Everything was
business
brought out.
being taken up at committee of the whole meetings because we had it, and there wasn't the information that was, we get as committees. There are things that cannot be discussed in a committee of the whole open meeting that can be discussed in individual committees. You just can't do it. Personnel issues, student issues,
You
just
could
can't
go
do
into
it.
And that's what we would have executive sessions
could go
for,
into
like we do at a board meeting. I mean, we had executive sessions last week also. And if there were times afterwards where there was something more specific that people wanted to work on, they could always talk afterwards.
Where's everyone's, like,
When,
where's everyone's thought?
when I had actually brought this up with policy, because I didn't know if it would fall under policy, so I had the opportunity to talk to both Mr. Gall and Nick that night. And when I talked and asked about the committee as a whole, Mr. Gall's thoughts were that committee, if we did both, not
Hybrid?
both, not quarterly, but both, yes, 3 and 1, 3 and 1, 3 and 1, quarterly. Mr. Gall's thoughts were that at that point, at the committee of the whole meetings, if we did it that way, that the chairman from the committees could then speak out at those committee of the whole meetings.
But if there was a
That's
committee of
how-
the whole, there wouldn't be a committee chair. Because there would no
You're right,
longer
but
be a committee.
when we originally
Except
talked about
for-
this, it was,
Except for certain things like personnel. What would there be committees for? We have to have, if we
I
had
think
committee
she's
of the whole.
referring to a work session where you talked more in depth about committees, right? That's what
Right,
you're
but
trying
if there was
to-
a committee
if
of the
we
whole,
had done the
there would be no
quarterly.
committee chair to report to.
If you have a committee of the whole, the entire board is engaged in
Right.
it.
Yes, but when I originally talked to Mr. Gall, it was the hybrid, as Kenny would call it, the hybrid, a mixture of both. But if we did a committee of the whole, obviously there wouldn't be no committee chairs at that point, no. I kind of like the committee of the whole because, I mean, there's, 11 heads are actually going to be here, or hopefully, if everyone's in attendance. It leaves it more open for discussion of different things. I mean, like, this wouldn't have been an issue now if there was a committee of the whole meeting in January when I first brought it up.
I mean, I think all the board members get to partake in all the committees if you have a committee as a whole. The public could be here. It's less meetings if we did it the way we intended. Our administrators are doing double duty. Some of them are going to 4 committee meetings, 5 committee meetings a month. In this way, it would be 1 committee meeting.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Does that cost the taxpayer more money? Or does it cost the taxpayer more money? Have the attorney here and the video, twice as many times.
Costs more money to have the work session, but it's also more accessible, more transparent.
Okay.
Is it
Well,
not?
I think we should, I make a motion, I make a motion to make a decision now on how we're gonna proceed as a board.
Is it not more transparent?
I have a motion on the floor.
What is it?
Beginning of the
The
year.
motion is to discuss, is to decide how this board is gonna move forward.
And I'll second.
I make a motion to proceed as we are now, as the board was, not as a hybrid, but as it was prior to that. With standing committees and 1 business meeting a month in order to provide the most efficient, effective administration of this district that this board can give. I'm making a motion to have once a month business meetings and continuous committees. I'm looking.
I'll second.
All right, discussion, Mrs. Stoll.
Well, I remember the beginning of the year, we did have a chairperson, and so we reported back on what happened with each individual committee. Then it was suggested that instead of having individuals, we would make them 1. And all the committee that we discussed at that particular meeting. That was the last I heard.
been doing a perfect job of relaying all the information, at least on the committees that I'm at.
I'm just trying to get at it doing work, Mr. Nutt.
Hey, and you know what, so I don't know where the message is that the information is not coming out. So I think the information is coming out and it's accurate, and I don't need to be getting a report.
Well, I haven't heard anything from the policy committee as the chair. Who's the chair of the policy committee?
I am.
Okay, well, I haven't heard one report from you about policy, which happens to be a pretty important part of this district. I have not heard one report from you since our individual meetings. And when push comes to shove, I understand what Mike reports out, but there's also further conversation that goes on at those tables that I'm well aware of. I know of meetings, and I'm one of them. When it came to the meeting for the outreach committee, I have been boxed out of it. I actually had a conversation with Mr. D'Agostino to say, listen, Mondays are falling apart for me. Can I move them, or I'm going to have to resign because I don't do things half-assed. So with that being said, Mr. Hayden, I'm still talking.
I'm just raising my hand so that
So with
I
that
don't
being
remember you
said,
raising your
I
hand
haven't heard
ever.
a report from Mrs. Fields
Okay.
once. I haven't heard a report since our first meeting with
We
outreach.
haven't had any meetings.
We have,
Could make them.
but my point is, you reported out that night that about our prom and everything else. I have not heard. What are the other committees that we have? We have buildings and grounds. I have not heard a report from you once.
Why? Because Mr. Gall handles them. I don't feel the need that I have to give a report if Mr. Gall is giving it. I come and I sit at the meeting and I participate with everyone else, and he reports out, and that's fine with me. I don't need to make the
And
report.
there's usually a written
But that was,
report.
the argument you just made was that the head would report out, which is what
I
policy
never
just
made
said,
that
correct?
I never made that argument. I'm happy with the way it's working.
Mr. Hunt.
Yeah, at our meeting last week where a lot of board members weren't able to attend that either.
That's why I love the
There
videos,
was
because I got to watch
There
it.
was no, we spent, I'm sorry, I have the floor at this
Oh,
point.
you go right ahead,
There was
Mr. Hyde.
20 minutes
It's all about you.
of discussion. No, it's, you know what, Mrs. Craig?
You're the only one
It
rolling
really
for the
is
camera,
about
which is
me.
what you
I'm not-
said.
Can we please, no, it's about.
I'm just speaking
Mhm.
on behalf of our students, the taxpayers, our board. There was no discussions at all at our committee of the whole meeting. There was 20 minutes of presentation, and I have it broken down by exact time, and I'm sure you watched it. There was no questions asked by any administrators to other administrators, any board members to the administrators. There was absolutely no public here. There was no real sharing of information or discussion of what we needed to do what's best for our community. And I'll leave it there. I'm not going to interrupt anybody. I'm going to raise my hand when I need to speak. And I would hope that the president of this board would do a better job at administrating this meeting and making sure that the folks who are speaking in turn. I find it very disrespectful to be spoken over and argued with, especially when they weren't even here. I'm sorry.
Mrs. Woody?
After, last week, after the presentations were, presented, I had questions, I came prepared, I discussed a few with, Nick beforehand. Summer, back to school nights, all kinds of different things I had different questions on. I would have liked to have heard other people's opinions on different things, maybe some suggestions. After the presentations, I don't know what happened, but I do know that Mr. Hayden did start talking about putting down the fact that we were having the committee of the wholes, and I honestly, I felt like a deer in the headlights. I was very much taken back, and I froze. I froze because you jumped on that, and I admit I froze, and I apologize for that, because I shouldn't have. I should have asked my questions and went on, but I didn't, because I did manage to say that it was supposed to be a work session, and that there should be, hopefully the 11 of us, which would include the 9 of us, Mr. Bowen and Christine especially, and that there should be some type of work done, some type of all of us together, and for discussion. Some of us have kids in school, some don't, some hear different things, some don't, so there's a lot that could have been done, and unfortunately, I don't know if it's being caught off guard or not, but I was very disappointed in the way that was jumped on, and I'm disappointed in myself for not continuing with my questions, so for that I apologize.
Mrs. Craig?
Thank you. And in regard to what Mr. Hayden said about having an issue with videotaping our meetings, I actually got to see the meeting, hear what our fellow members had to say, because I couldn't be here, just like other board members that have family obligations. So I actually got to see and hear verbatim what happened instead of innuendo or passing on the street or anything else. So in very similar stride with Mrs. Whitty, I saw what I saw to bring to the table tonight, and that's why the video becomes such an amazing tool for transparency to the public. Thank you.
I think the thing with the committee as a whole, if there was an agenda, I don't know how you guys used to do it. Mr. Hyden?
There is no agenda because an agenda lists pretty much actionable items. There would be like a spot probably for discussion of certain things, and like I said in the past, certain things cannot be discussed at an open committee of the whole type.
Francis, could you not have a agenda with items to discuss?
You can have an agenda, you can have bulleted points, items for administration to discuss and review with the board. You just have to clearly delineate that no action will be taken at that meeting because it is either just a work session or a committee of the whole meeting. So it just has to be made clear that no action will be taken, but you can certainly have materials readily available for the board members to review in advance and to help guide the conversation.
This is great.
We clearly had an agenda when we had work session meetings. There was one particular meeting, we actually had 11 policies on the agenda that we went over. It was clearly stated as we started by Mrs. Riker, and our attorney at that point was Mr. Brisman, and he said there's no action taken at these meetings. It's a work session meeting. We had all of our administrators there. They lined up. We asked tons of questions. In fact, at that meeting, we had 11 policies. 7 went through. 4 were pulled back because we didn't like what we were being told. And from there, we actually formed our very first policy committee that myself, Jan Mazier, and Lisa Frisbee were on with Dr. Isbiki because we didn't like what we were hearing. So we did that, but then took it back, and there was no action taken.
But if you said that some policies moved forward and some didn't, then some sort of action took place. And we did get in trouble, Mrs. Craig, many times in the past because of things just like that where things were discussed and then moved on. And you can't do that. I'm sorry.
Ed pulled the entire set of policies that night, and you know what? You just answered your own question. That's the beauty of having our attorney here, so that we won't get in trouble further, Mr. Hayden.
If I can clarify, and I just want to make sure no one's tripping up on semantics here with respect to moving items or not moving items. I'm not sure what happened, because I wasn't there at that meeting, if it was recommendations to administration to proceed with policies, because that could be a direction, right? You can speak to
There was 4
administration
discussed
regarding.
policies.
Sorry, I apologize.
You could have discussions with administration, setting forth your input as policies for the administration to consider to further look into. That's a discussion, right? That doesn't constitute board action for you to express interest in certain policies or the exploration of maybe certain revisions or something like that, right? You're not taking board action, you're just discussing. You're not submitting it to the public yet for the first or second publication. You're just speaking with administration, getting more information on policies, maybe their impact, and utilization in the district, bless you. So,
Thank you.
I think also then maybe just to clarify when you say, and again, I wasn't there at that meeting, but whether it's move forward or you're referring them to administration is a little bit different. So, again, each board is different. The way you want to use work sessions or committee of the wholes, agendas can be used to guide the discussion. I think the first time you had the work session, that hybrid form, I think there was some confusion on the part of the board member as to what to anticipate, what to expect, and the purpose of the specific work sessions. So in that first time you had some presentations and maybe you weren't fully prepared on what happens next or how to apply or process that information. And because it was the first time you've had a work session, that type of session, in quite a while. So that's your first session. I'm not saying that it's not worth it or it is worth it. That's ultimately a decision for you. But I think that even if there were some hiccups at any meeting that you have or anything you do for the first time, I don't think any kind of resistance the first time you do anything should be a barrier or should be prohibitive of you trying to enhance it or improve it in the future. Again, up to you to decide, but my opinion is some boards do use it they like them, they find them useful, some don't, up to the board. But whether or not there was a little bit of some confusion at the first one, I just would suggest that you all reconsider to determine whether or not it's something for this board.
And then we'll have to end the discussion soon, but I'm even open-minded to not having legal counsel at the work sessions if we were to do that.
I
The
think
cost
you
of
need to
having,
have an attorney at a meeting,
well, I'm saying the cost of the work session was brought up, the committee as a whole,
but I
and
wouldn't
the camera wouldn't
sacrifice.
cost anything.
We did
I'm
get
sorry.
into legal trouble, so
Well, it's, yeah, so, that's just
it works out.
But again, I just think it's one meeting a month instead of several. I think it's, everyone gets to participate in every committee. And if the public wants to show up, which they did not last time, they can. That's my personal opinion, but if anybody doesn't have anything else to say, we'll entertain the motion. We had a first and a second. Just to be clear, a yes vote would be to go back to committees and one regular public session, which is what we used to do. And a no vote would be to,
You would just be preserving the
as
existing
it
meeting
is, the
schedule.
existing schedule.
I'm sorry, say that again so I'm clear.
A yes vote would be to go back to the way it was, which is committees, small committees, and one public session. A no vote would be to continue the way that we have, which would be a work session every 3 months, which I would then counter motion to have a work session every month.
That was not my motion at all. My motion was one or the other. That was it. Not,
I thought you said
nope,
a regular
it was
session.
either committee of the
Well,
whole
you did, but I was.
or a
Oh,
committee
okay.
driven.
I'm sorry, I'm just having misunderstood.
I'm sorry.
So I think the way to proceed is to put the first motion. If
Well-
it fails, then you can present the second motion.
My
to-
first
Well, his
motion
motion
was
was, his first motion was to do one or the other.
Right.
Not
But then
not
what
both.
is the one that's?
So I'll make,
being
can I make a motion, Mr. President?
Actually, your first motion was to amend
Which nobody,
eliminate the work sessions and go back to committee of the whole.
which nobody seconded, so we could.
Yes, Mr. Nuss seconded.
I support
Okay,
Go
so,
back to one,
Go back to the
one
one regular
regular session,
business.
So
yes.
how do we work that? Do we go through that and then we ask, we make a motion for committee of the whole?
yes, so you vote yes if you would like to go back to committees and not do any committee as a whole. Vote no if you would like to do committees as a whole, and if there's more no's than yeses, we'll make another motion to have a committee as a whole every month. That being said, roll call please.
Mr. Hyden,
Yes.
Mr. Nuss,
Yes.
Mrs. Craig,
No.
Mrs. Fields,
Yes.
Mrs. Ranzans,
Yes.
Mrs. Steele,
Yes.
Mrs. Stahl,
Yes.
Ms. Whitney,
No,
Mr. D'Agostino.
No.
Motion carries.
Right, so basically what we did was we got rid of the December meeting and any committee as a whole.
Right, so I need to now advertise this newly approved schedule. I will have it on the agenda in October. Actually, I'll have it on the agenda for October for approval for the meeting schedule. Okay. And then I'll advertise after that.
All right, well, thank you all for the discussion. Is there any other unfinished business before we move on? All right, we'll move on to the new business. Any new business?
I just want to compliment Mr. Gregory again. He was brought out in social media with the young boys. I don't even know what they are.
Hero boys,
Huh?
hero boys.
Hero boys, that's it. He was out there,
It's just like every meeting you get a shout out from Mrs. Fields, you know?
you're gonna miss me.
Man with the young boys.
I'll come to the meeting just to that. But you just see him all over the place, and I really appreciate that. And where I saw it, a Montague mother said they were so sorry to see him leave from their school. And of course, I didn't respond, I just thought, we have the best principal, second to Mr. Hall. Yeah, but
He's the
the
fastest.
Wantage school. He has
Oh,
nothing to do with the
okay.
Wantage school.
I don't know if I
Good
can echo,
save, good save, Steve.
Yeah.
I can echo those
I
statements
kicked him,
about
Shane.
But he is a good principal too, I have to say.
the entire administration and staff. You know, I haven't had the privilege of working directly at Sussex Middle School, but now having worked at Wantage and CEL, I mean, the folks do an extraordinary job for you, for the kids, for the community. You often have no idea. I mean, the board gets some rundowns and some information emailed to you about the various events that occur in a school day, today being very interesting. And the work that the teaching staff and the paras and I mean just the administration, everybody that does for you, I mean, it's just really extraordinary. And I feel blessed being a part of the district.
And to elaborate on that, I grew up in this community, I went through the school, my grandchildren come here now. And until I became a member of this board, I never realized how much work the administrators do, the teachers do, the entire staff of the school, what they do for our children. And I applaud them, and they are just wonderful. I can't say enough about them. I tell everyone that our school is the best, because we have great administrators and great teachers. And I hope none of them ever leave.
I'll piggyback on that and piggyback on what the 8th grade fundraising committee, I mean, there were so many teachers and aides and principals and the superintendent that came out to support the kids. It was so nice to see them. You know, the kids got really excited about it, having the, you know, their teacher, their superintendent, who left with a soapy car. But it was just very nice to see all of that, you know, support come out from all of
It was
the.
interesting as I pulled up to see all the moms washing the car. And then I had to pitch in and wash my car.
That's typically how it goes.
That's what moms do.
Right, that's typically how
But
it goes.
this has really gone 180 in a short amount of time. I feel like we should all hop.
I want to thank everybody for their efforts on behalf of our students, day in and day out, both parents, volunteers, staff members, administrators, and the board. I also want to caution everybody that it's September, real close to October, and we have to really start looking at places to trim for next year's budget. And I just hope that, Mr. D'Agostino, that we can limit the impact on our staff that have direct contact with our students. And just try to do what's best for the delivery of the curriculum. There are things that are here that we all know that are beyond really the scope of the school district. And we need to look deep within ourselves, within those committees, to look at where we're going to save that money in order to keep staff members in the classroom and students getting their services and really protect the taxpayers from undue increases on their tax bill.
Absolutely. It's tough times we're going through with the budget, the state aid cuts. On that note, Mrs. Ranzan and I on September 16th had met at the Sit and Chat in Wantage with Bill Kehoe and Debbie Anderson of the High Point Board, and just opened up a dialogue. There was really no official discussions had. It was more about our kids are going to your school, and we need to best prepare them for High Point. And if you ever have something a suggestion, feel free to reach out. And if we have a suggestion, feel free to reach out as well. Very good discussion. Happy to open a dialogue with High Point as their largest sending district. And as Mr. Hyden said, this budget season is going to be tough, and it's only going to get tougher. So we have to certainly work together and figure it out. And I know that we will. Any other new business? All right, we'll move on to audience remarks. Members of the audience are invited to make brief comments about items on this agenda and matters of interest to the district.
Hi, this is Ann Orden again, SWEA president and multiple disabilities teacher. So I piggyback on what Mr. Hayden had said before, and I know I speak for not just myself, but for some other teachers as well, as you're talking about budget cuts for the upcoming school year. I understand that position is very difficult. I wouldn't be one who wanted to make those decisions, but I can speak firsthand on the TA situation that we have. And I know, like, it always looks good on paper that we have to cut them all at the end of the school year, but we're back in September and we had to hire them all back, plus more. Because this district always has a need. I can't function one day in my classroom without my TAs, especially Ms. Walsh. And I know Mr. Gall's been a member quite a few times lately, and he can see firsthand exactly how much it is needed. So I just want to put that out there that, I mean, to cut TAs and have to go back to the drawing board and hire them all back, I mean, it's great on paper to make that budget pass, but it's really not realistic in this district. So I know it's a difficult job that you guys have to do to find ways to cut funds, but you know, TAs at the rate of $15, $16, $17 an hour really isn't a huge chunk of your budget either. But it is needed and it's all IEP driven. So we want to stay in compliance, and that's just the best way to do it. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to invite, I believe, are you Mr. Toth?
I am.
Previous to your arrival, I commented a little bit about your initiative, and I don't know if you can elaborate on it at all for the board. I just wanted to invite you to speak.
I'd rather give the floor to other people and talk in due course, but this is a miniature of the one I did for High Point. High Point took me 6 years, 50 interviews, and one for the 4 schools. I talked to students from the 1930s. It's been 4.5 years and 150 letters and interviews. I've arrived at 100 teachers, and my research concluded in June. This is a miniature of what your plaque would look like, 4 plaques.
That's really
3 of
great.
us pulled off the plaque, or the mural of High Point High School. It was Art Frisbee, myself, and Paul Darren. I wound up covering half of that. I'm very well known in veterans and historical circles. I left this school in 1975. Mr. Ling was in World War II. Harold Johnson lost friends in Korea. I was up on the DMZ in the infantry myself later on. Mrs. Bierstein's husband from Wantage School had invented microwavable plastic. He was a World War II vet. I knew Cliff Lawrence, saw him about 3 weeks before it passed. But that would be a gift to you. I would just ask that it be put in the hallways for people to learn who their teachers were, who served in World War II, saved the world. And it's free. It won't cost you anything.
Thank you so much, Mr. Toth.
It's time to say thanks to your teachers.
Absolutely. Thank you for your service, and thank you for putting in all that time and effort into doing that. I guess it would have to be on an agenda. Are we able to make a motion to accept this?
Well, when you present the plaque to us, we would.
Okay, there'll be a plaque for Wantage School, Lawrence School, Middle School, and North Sussex High School, all their teachers. Art Frisbee is in the process of making them now.
Thank you.
Memorial Day next year.
Oh, that's awesome.
Are you talking about that school?
Well, that was the 3rd school up there. There was Franklin's Private Academy, a wooden school. Janie Gilman taught there.
Yeah.
She was
Up on the
That was-
hill?
Richie Dunn tore that down in
Right,
April of
right, right.
'77. We used to play in that building.
I did too. Like I said, I grew up in this neighborhood.
Do you know Sue?
Conklin,
Okay, well, there were Conklins up on Harrison Street.
but we weren't related. I was on Walnut Street.
All right, well, Irene Kosh, who lived on Walnut Street, was a good friend of mine. John
Yep.
Pommel was a good friend.
Mhm.
Reynold Radeye was a good friend of mine.
Yep, he lived down at the all the way to the end of the road, the Duns.
Jackie Lane, Howard Case, the town historian, and Martha White, the town historian, were good friends of mine.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Right, well, thank you, Mr. Toth, and I think, I speak on behalf of the whole board that that's very special, what you're doing. And we look forward to receiving those very generous donations to our district.
A number of people would like to co-present those. The college president, Dr. Ripley, Kathy Little had an interest in that, a few people. I'll talk about that later.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you.
Are there any other audience remarks?
Hi, Kevin Craig from Wantage. I just want to tell all the board members, I appreciate the discussion that you just had about the process and the schedule. And from a member of the public and taxpayer, to me, that's the benefit of having work sessions or committees as a whole, because we get to kind of see that debate, and we get to see how each one of you individually feels about certain issues, even if you're not taking action on it. So, you have to move forward in the way that the majority wants, and I certainly respect that, but that is the benefit to the public, to get to see those discussions. And sometimes they're spirited, and sometimes they're intense, but again, that's the benefit of it, which we don't get to see in the committee part. So hopefully, moving forward, for next year's schedule, you can come to an agreement on what's the best for the board and for the district, but also keeping the public in mind. I do, however, just think it's a slippery slope, as some of the comments were made about, you can do committees with some people, but you can't do them with other people. So deciding that based on the makeup of the board, I think is a slippery slope, because you can get into the position where you're changing it if everyone's agreeing, we can get in front of the public and we can all agree and everything looks great. But if people don't agree and we have spirited conversations, that's stuff we have to keep behind closed doors. So however you decide to move in the future, I hope you just pick a course and stay the course and not decide it based on people or personalities, because I think that's a slippery slope as far as, again, the public view and transparency is concerned. One other comment about the videotaping of the meetings. I don't see why anybody could argue against videotaping meetings. The cost of having this gentleman stand in the back and press play on a video recorder, we probably spend more in paper clips in this district than that costs the taxpayers of this district to do. So I think it's a very poor argument to say that that's a burden on the taxpayers to have those recorded. And secondly, when we had, I'm a frequent attendee at board meetings throughout this district and also at High Point. And I've seen from time to time, board members are absent, and we have all the technology here that has to be set up for board members to attend via satellite, for lack of a better term. And there was never any discussion about that that's a burden on the taxpayers to have this gentleman set up and do that for the convenience of board members. So if we can do it for board members, we should continue to do it for our public, so we can maintain transparency and have an accurate reporting of our meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? Seeing none, I believe we are going to move into executive session. No action will be taken. Can I get a resolution?
I'll second.
You better do a resolution.
Cut you off every time.
Whereas pursuant to NJSA 10-4-12P, the Sussex-Wantage Regional Board of Education may exclude the public from that portion of a public meeting in which the board discusses any of the matters described in NJSA 10-4-12P 1-9. Now therefore it be it resolved that the Sussex-Wantage Regional Board of Education shall enter into closed session to discuss legal and personnel matters. Now therefore it be further resolved by the Sussex-Wantage Regional Board of Education that pursuant to NJSA 10-4-13D, the time, when, and circumstances under which the discussion conducted in closed session can be disclosed to the public is when the need for confidentiality no longer exists.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Stoll.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Begg. All in favor?
Aye.